If you want to see how we transform this sad and rusty GQ cab into this, then this is definitely the video for you, so watch along. As you can see behind me, we have an empty cab. We've stripped out the whole back rear setup in it, getting ready to do the cab swap. After the cab swap, we're going to redo the whole setup, so I'm super excited to see what it turns out like. Now, as I mentioned, the first step of this cab swap was actually just to strip everything off this car. We started on the roof rack and then we moved on to the interior setup. So today we are working on taking all my bar work off my current cab, ready to pull the cab off the chassis. So get all this off, so let's get into it. Somehow I managed to get that bar off on my own. I do not know how I managed that, but now I can't lift it, so that's where it's staying. And just like that, we have a bar work free car. You can really see how bad the poke is on my car when I don't have any bar work on. Okay, so we have got like all the interior essentially stripped out. Most of the wiring out, which that was a menace to get it all out. I'll be reusing all my guards and doors, so now I've got to get these all off the old cab, ready for the new cab. So we're currently in the stripping the cab process, and right now we're removing all the panels. I've done nearly most of the car. I've got this door left and then the two back doors left to go, so let's go do it. I'm covered in dirt because everything in this car is so filthy. To lift this one off on my own, but we're gonna wing it. I feel like these barn doors are super heavy. I'm actually not sure how I'm gonna do this without dropping it. We got him. Okay. Ow. Oh, I knocked myself in the head. We now have a very naked GQ Patrol cab, so. Okay, so far with the car, we've got all the panels off, we've got the bar work off, we've got the interior stripped out, and all that's really left before I can pull the cab off is obviously the bonnet, because I can't lift it on my own. And I'm just pulling everything that's on the cab in the engine bay, pulling it off so we can lift it up. So that's my project for today. Now, other than pulling the radiator out, I didn't actually film that much of the engine bay because it was very time consuming and honestly quite boring. So we're just going to skip this and move to the next stage. Today is the day we finally pulled the cab off. We've got the hoist just hooked up now and the cab is all disconnected, so I'm very excited. Now, it actually took us a few goes to get the cab off because each time we'd lift it up, we noticed a few things that we hadn't unhooked properly. So we'd lift it up, work out what else needed to be loosened off or undone, and then eventually we got to the point where it was finished and could be lifted the whole way up. Now, you're probably wondering how we managed to transport the cab around the paddock. This was the technique we used. Flat tyres on the trailer to fit it through the shed door. And it's a tipper trailer, so we managed to just tip the old cab off once we got it out there. Hey guys, we're back for another day in the shed. Today we're going to be working on painting the underside of my cab. I use an enamel paint from Super Cheap, and it's like a gloss. And we're going to paint everything with that, so let's get into it. I'm kicking off the whole process by wire wheeling back all the patches we've welded in to replace rusty bits. They've got a bit of surface rust from sitting outside. So we'll get these all prepped, we'll get them sanded and then undercoated, ready for the top layer of paint. Heaps of work to get done, so we're going to go start by sanding my bar work. So let's get the tunes cranking and get into it. We're using today is enamel gloss paint from Super Cheap with enamel thinners to suit, and we're mixing it at about 2-to-1 ratio, so 2 parts paint and 1 part thinners, and this means that it's quite thin for me to be able to spray it through the gun, which is good, and it goes on really nice. So let's get into it. All the bar work painted, it's on to the next thing on the list, which is doing the weld-in chassis bracing, ready for the chassis to then be painted as well. Let's brace some coil towers from Superior. Now, what you can see here is the Superior Engineering coil tower brace kit suited to the GQ Patrol. Now, this one is actually just a weld-in kit, so that's what we're going to be doing now. My welding skills are definitely not the best, so I'm going to let Bronson do the welding while I get on to doing the sanding of all the doors and guards. I like to use the air sander to do most of the sanding and then just go over it with wet and dry afterwards. Okay, so today we're going to repaint my chassis. It's cleaned, wide wheel back as good as I can, and let's get into it. This is what we're doing. This is the paint. This paint is a 2-part paint, so you need the hardener. So that is what I'm doing here. I'm just mixing the hardener in with it, ready to spray it through the gun. And this is what the finished result looked like. Hi guys, we are back for another day in the shed, and today we're going to be priming all my doors and guards. So these are all the doors and guards I've already sanded, so I'm just taping them all up, and then I'll give them a quick wipe down before painting them with primer, 2-pack primer that is, and then after that I'll give them another wet and dry sand, but with a finer grit sandpaper. So let's fast forward through this process so you guys can see what I mean. Okay, so today we are officially painting the colour on my cab and I'm super excited. It's always nerve-wracking though to do the painting. You just hope that everything comes out perfect like you imagine. So let's get into it. We have chosen to go ahead with a 2-pack paint. This paint gets mixed at a 2-to-1 ratio with thinners. Once again, I've gone ahead with the factory gold. This is the colour code CKO. However, it's got extra metallic in it, which makes it a lot brighter. And this time we've also gone ahead with the pink pearl in the clear coat, which looks amazing. So let's see how this all turns out. Now there's just one more thing to do before we can bolt the cab back to the chassis, which is a bolt-in coil brace kit for the rear coil towers. This one is also from Superior. And this is what it all looked like before the cab went on. Very clean and tidy now. Now it's finally time to lower the cab back down on the chassis. This was a bit of a slow process because, as you can imagine, lots of things get in the way as you're trying to lower it back down. But we eventually got there and it was time for us to bolt all the panels and guards on and the doors. Now, I'm not going to show us bolting all the stuff back on because, quite honestly, I'm sure you can imagine what that looks like. So let's skip through this and get to the next point. Now, after all the stuff was bolted back on, it was now time to fit the interior back out again. We're going to go with the same rear setup, but we're just going to finish it off a bit neater than last time so it has a bit more practicality. And after this, we've just got the 12-volt system left to fit, and then it's essentially done and ready to go traveling again. Now, this is what the car currently sits at. Follow along if you want to see part 2, where I'll show you guys the finished internal setup and the finished results of the car. Now, this was a huge accomplishment for myself. Obviously, I'm not a professional, so this was a very big job for me. But I am so glad that it's finished and I'm very happy with the results. Now, this was a massive job, and without my amazing partner, Bronson, I would not have been able to do this. He did so much behind-the-scenes work. And also, shout out to EcoX Gear and Superior because they both helped with this build as well. Now, if you want to see part 2 and more content of my GQ Patrol, follow along, like and subscribe to this channel, and we will see you in the next episode.